How does one actually become one of the best closers of all time? You're about to find out on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, and I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. And honestly, who doesn't love free? If it's free, what have you got to lose? You might as well tune in, right? So start your day off right every day, Monday through Friday, with Locked On Red Sox, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can join and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Welcome to another episode of the show, and I am so excited for today's show because in just a little bit, I'm about to be joined by a Red Sox legend who really doesn't need much of an introduction at all and will go down as one of the best closers of all time. If you haven't guessed yet, it is Jonathan Papelbon, legendary Red Sox closer. Can't emphasize how many career accolades he really has. I mean, this man started off going to college at Mississippi State as a closer and had a 9-6 record with 13 saves and a .290 earned run average in his 3 years on the team. During his time there, the Bulldogs appeared in the 2001 and 2003 NCAA tournaments and won the 2001 SEC tournament. He gained experience as a closer in college, but then when he got drafted by the Red Sox, which was in the fourth round of the 2003 MLB draft, he began his minor league career as a starter, actually, where he pitched for the Lowell Spinners of the New York Penn League. In 13 games, 6 of them starts. He had a 1-2 record, a .634 ERA, 43 hits, 36 strikeouts, and 9 walks in 32 2/3 innings pitched. After he had a 13-10 record for Class A Lowell Spinners and Sarasota Red Sox from 2003 to 2004, he then went 5-2 in 14 starts for AA Portland in 2005. He was then promoted to AAA Pawtucket and went 1-2 there with a .357 ERA in 4 starts, walking 2 and striking out 21 in 22 1/3 innings. So he was very much at the point where he was trying to find his footing. The Red Sox thought for the longest time that he was going to be a starter. The plan was for him to be a starter. He made his major league debut with the Red Sox on July 31st, 2005 against the Twins. In that game, he went 5 1/3 innings, struck out 7 batters, and issued 5 walks in a 4-3 Red Sox victory. He earned his first major league win a few months after that on September 12th when he pitched 3 scoreless innings in an extra inning game against the Blue Jays. He also made 2 postseason appearances in 2005 where he pitched 4 scoreless innings against the eventual World Series champion that year, which was the Chicago White Sox. And because of all of this, the Red Sox did have plans of slotting him into the starting rotation prior to the regular season in 2006 because that's what he had done for them, and that was the experience they had to go off of. But then Keith Folk wasn't really effective after trying to come back from an injury-plagued 2005 season. He was struggling, so they gave Papelbon a shot to close games in April 2006. And he recorded his first career save against the Rangers on April 5th of the 2006 season. And then the rest is history. On April 29th, he set an MLB record with his 10th save, becoming the first rookie in Major League history to record double-digit saves in the month of April. He then received the Delivery Man of the Month award for April, And also then he goes to 2007 and he won the Delivery Man of the Year award on October 11th, 2007, which is an award given out to basically the best relief pitcher in Major League Baseball for the year. So that alone is an accolade in itself. He was brought in Game 2 of the World Series, and the 2007 Red Sox had so much hype surrounding them, but we weren't sure whether they were going to win the whole thing that year. A lot of things had to come together, and it did, and Papelbon was a huge part of that. He was brought in with the bases empty in Game 2 of the World Series and with 2 outs in the 8th inning. The Red Sox were leading 2-1 at the time, and he was facing hitter Matt Holliday. He gave up a single to Holliday, then picked him off to end the inning. And then he pitched a 1-2-3 ninth to earn the save. And then in Game 4, this is such a historic and strong memory Red Sox fans have of him. When he entered in the 8th inning to shut down the Rockies' comeback and pitched the 9th inning also, where he struck out Seth Smith to clinch the 2007 World Series championship for the Red Sox. And there's a very famous picture of him after he clinches that. So it was a very exciting moment for him and for Red Sox fans. And he's just had significant success over his career. He pitched for the Red Sox from 2005 to 2011, then with the Phillies from 2012 to 2015, and then with the Nationals from 2015 to 2016. Other career highlights: 6-time All-Star in 2006 through 2009, all of those consecutive seasons, and then another All-Star appearance in 2012 and another one in 2015. And then he pitched a combined no-hitter on September 1st, 2014. He also was recently inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame in December alongside Trot Nixon and Dustin Pedroia. When he found out he was inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame, he actually reacted on Twitter, and he said, "It is an honor to be inducted to Red Sox Hall of Fame today with Trot and Dustin, two of the best teammates you could ask for, who played every out with integrity and respect. Blessed and thankful." Jonathan Papelbon is a legend, and to be a closer takes a significant amount of skill and mental toughness, and he displayed all of that while helping the Red Sox to win a lot of games. Coming up, you're going to hear from the man himself and find out what exactly it is that made Jonathan Papelbon the closer that he was for the Boston Red Sox. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. More exciting news for you is that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. This is incredibly exciting for Locked On because nobody else has this. So head to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Welcome back to the show, everybody. I am here with a Red Sox legend, one of the best closers in the game of baseball, Jonathan Papelbon. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's up, Gabby? I'm doing good. Just trying to keep my old ass in shape. I'm in the gym here today.
Yeah, I definitely, understand how that goes, that motivation of making sure you're keeping up with the gym.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on the show with me. I know it'll definitely be, a great perspective for the listeners and everything like that. So obviously you have had a very decorative baseball career. But when you were younger growing up, who were some of the players that you looked up to that were playing professional baseball?
You know, I, I've been asked that question before. And to me, you know, growing up, my dad was a big Giants fan, so I obviously watched Will Clark because my dad was a big fan of Will, and then lo and behold, went to Mississippi State, same university as him, and years later, now we're pretty good friends. We talk a lot, and you know, text each other here and there to keep up with each other, and so that was pretty cool for me. But I would say, as far as you know, watching a pitcher and wanting to be that pitcher, that didn't really come until like college minor leagues for me. And obviously that guy was Roger Clemens for me. And but I will say one thing I did not like is when I got to Boston, they compared me to him, and I didn't want to be compared because obviously he was who he was, and I was nobody at the time. And I felt like I wanted to go create um, my own road, you know, not follow his. But
Yeah, it's definitely tough because you want to create your own identity as a player, and not have people try to look at you like you're somebody else or compare you to somebody else. But I feel like sometimes it's natural for people to, do those types of comparisons. Like even current players now, I see people on Twitter try to compare them to former players, and it's like, all right, let's let this player kind of create their own identity as a player and not look at them like they're somebody else.
yeah, you know, I think it's just natural because I think the day that you get drafted, you're compared to a player usually, and it's just a natural thing that happens. But I don't like it. I don't like it. I think you know, when you start to do that, I think players start to feel like, oh, I've got to be like that guy. I've got to produce like that guy, and they get outside of themselves. So I don't like doing it. I like players to go out there and be themselves and lay it all on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And, for you, obviously, I'm sure for a while you kind of knew that baseball was something that you wanted to pursue, but was there kind of a specific point in your life where you knew, okay, I can really do this and I can make a career out of this?
Um, yeah, I knew I could. I'm not quite sure how to say this, but I knew I could make a career out of this when I realized that I could pitch well and pitch extremely well when I was hungover. So I
I
knew
love that.
I knew that I could make it through. But I also knew when when you get to the big leagues and you start doing things that like striking out a Sheffield or a Jeter or somebody like that, and you try to build upon those things. So I knew once I had success how to build on it. I had great coaches around me and taught me how to do that. Al Nipper was a young pitching coach of mine that taught me a lot of that part of the game. Um, but yeah, I realized that if I could maintain 162 games and be able to, play that balance of um, enjoying my life, enjoying my work, play hard, work hard was a whole motto of mine. So yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned maintaining 162 games. It's a long season. And how did you keep yourself mentally in focus for the entire length of the season?
Well, Gabby, I have a terrible, terrible short-term memory, and I think that is what really enabled me to be a good closer. And I never ever took one day into the next. Each day was always a new day for me. So that wasn't a hard thing for me to do. It just kind of came natural. And I love to compete, and I loved to have a chance to be out there every single day, and especially if the game was on the line, have the ability to go and close that door and preserve that win. So that's what I live for every day. But I really and truly I did not like the starters routine, and I just didn't feel like it would work for me. And I loved the grind of the season, the chance to play every day and strap it on every day for 162 games. I enjoyed that. So that is why I feel like closing is kind of what I ended up doing.
Yeah, because early on in your career, the plan was for you to be a starter. So, what would you say was the biggest thing that helped you to ease that transition from doing all this work to be a starting pitcher to then going into transitioning into the closing role where you're, really having to zone in on just pitching short stints at a time and just nailing down those games?
Yeah, for me, it was not hard because I closed in college. And then I started in the minor leagues and I started 4 or 5 games when my big league career started. And so it wasn't hard going back to closing. I just it was like kind of like riding a bike, you just kind of start to pick up things. But to me, it would have been much harder going from a closer back to a starter. I just kind of fell into it, and you know, Francona and Theo wanted me to start, and I just had to express to them that this is what I feel, and I feel like maybe I don't have a lot of time in the big leagues, but I feel like I need to express myself to y'all and tell you because you can make the best decision. And fortunately for me, that worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I always admire closers because there's so much pressure on you. And, a lot of times the closer ends up getting blamed if the team,
Yeah.
loses a close game at the end. So for you, if you did blow a save, what how did you bounce back from that? Were there any challenges that, came in between then until the next time you pitched?
Um, to answer the first part of your question, how do I bounce back? I usually bounce back with a good night of like Jägermeister and some red wine. That's how I would bounce back. But
Always a good solution.
and forget about it. Just turn the page and go and have a night to just relax and get it out of my system and be ready the next day to go right back at it. And so for me, that was part of my game. Part of my game was to make sure that I flushed everything from whether it be good or bad, Gabby. Like that's a big thing. And Mariano, I had many conversations with him throughout the years, and it seemed like to me our conversations always reverted back to turning the page and going to the next day and keeping that grind up, whether it be a good day or a bad day. And I mean, he's the greatest closer of all time. So I was like, shit, I'm going to take this into my game. And so I took that into my game, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I feel like it's such a mentally tough game. I mean, I've talked to so many people who have said, not everybody can make it because you need to have that right mental stamina to be able to bounce back in those types of situations. Because the reality is, everybody's going to have bad days. It really applies to anything in life, but it's just a matter of what mindset do you have and how are you going to address the next day, and just being able to stay mentally in tune with, okay, it was just one outing. I can go back and have an even better outing next time.
Yeah, I've said this for a long time. I feel like closing, and I might catch some flack for this, but whatever. I don't give a shit. But I feel like closing is the hardest thing to do in sports, whether it's baseball, football, or whatever, but or basketball. But you, as a closer in baseball, you have to be perfect, 50 to 60 times a year, or expected to be. As a starter, you're expected to be perfect, 20 to 25 times a year. And you have everything in you to prepare to be perfect that day. You don't know when you're going to get called on as a closer. So, the ability to be perfect and succeed is a lot harder because you have to do it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's the thing, is there's more opportunity for error and just more, chances that you might not have a good day that day because there's more opportunity that you're throwing. So that alone creates just more pressure than it would be as a starter when you're typically pitching every fifth day.
Yeah, and for me, that pressure is something that I realized a couple of years into it, that it's something that I needed and it's something that I thrived upon. And when I didn't have it, I realized that I wasn't as good. So it's kind of crazy to think that way. There were times where I really didn't turn it on until I was like, oh shit, okay, now it's a 1-run game. I got a guy on second. If he scores, it's over. So I would turn it on. Like, so you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely do. And I feel like, when it comes to being in those situations where, you're coming into a game maybe with, traffic on the bases. And there's been plenty of times where, the Red Sox even recently would start off with somebody else pitching in the ninth inning, and then they'd bring in their closer because there's traffic on the bases, and that probably just, creates even more pressure of, okay, I have to be even more on point than I would be if I came in with a clean, fresh inning with nobody on the bases.
Yeah, and that all comes into play with goes back to your manager and how to manipulate those guys and put those guys in certain spots to succeed for the entire season. And yeah, you're not always going to make the right moves, but that goes all into those factors that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did mention, the manager, and there's so much pressure on a manager in a game to make the right decisions about who to put in when in certain situations. And a manager will take a lot of heat for not making what people think was the right decision in terms of who to throw when. So speaking of coaches, how influential would you say, the Red Sox coaching staff was on the success of your career?
Well, it was Tito's like a father to me when I first came up. Would slap me upside the head when I needed to be slapped upside the head, coddle me when I needed to be coddled, um, help me with my family when family needed to be helped, communicate with me on everything. And I had my kids raising. So you're talking about all these things that happen in life and still having to go and produce on the field. So, um, and then I had guys like, Ryan Sandberg or somebody like that had zero clue about the pulse of a team and how it works. And so I've been on both sides of it. But at the end of the day, to me, as a manager, if you don't know your players inside and out, you won't be successful. And I feel like, you know, Alex Cora is a descendant of Terry Francona, and I see a lot of similar things in the way they approach and handle their ball clubs.
Really? Yeah. One thing that, I've just heard a lot about Alex Cora is just his ability to connect with his players and how he's a very players type of manager. And that's the type of person that you want leading a team, is somebody who has that ability to connect with each player on that individual basis, because collectively that's going to just help elevate the overall performance of the team.
Yeah, you don't win a championship as a player and a championship as a manager without having to be able to do that. And I think, and I've said this a lot, I feel like this year is going to be a very sneaky good year for the Red Sox. I think they have some young players that they've I like the Vaughn kid. I think they've made some moves, but not enough moves. I don't think yet. I think there's still something up their sleeve, but um, I also think that they know something about the players that are coming back that expect a lot and are expecting a lot out of this season too.
Yeah, and I've talked about this a lot on the show too, is they seem to trust in just the development of some of the young players on this team. And also I think one thing that definitely hasn't really been talked about enough yet is bringing Andrew Bailey in to work with this pitching staff, because there's definitely a lot of potential there, but it's just a matter of elevating their games, the guys who are currently on the staff, and bringing in somebody like him. I just really like his mentality of every pitcher is different. You need to, figure out how to work with each one individually to help maximize their potential, because I felt like over the last few seasons, the Red Sox weren't really in a position where they were getting the most out of their pitchers. So I'm excited to see what these current pitchers can do to improve in 2024, but I would like to see them acquire one more arm before the season starts.
Well, yeah, and I think everybody does. But that process will unfold, leading up to spring training and maybe even into spring training. Who knows? About possibly adding that arm. And, Andrew Bailey is, to me, a phenomenal hire. Comes from he's played in the Red Sox organization and the athletics organization. So he's seen both ends of it. And he could pull and draw from what Billy Beane did or what, the Red Sox did with him while he was here. And I also know that the way he approached his pitching style was to pound the zone with strikes early and often. And to me, he's going to make sure that our bullpen does not throw more than our starters this year.
Yeah, that was so bad in 2023 because the bullpen was very visibly fatigued because they had to take on a lot and they were pitching a lot because the starters weren't really pitching deep into games. So that was a huge problem. So I definitely want to see more longevity from the starting pitchers this year. And I think that'll make a big difference in terms of how the bullpen is pitching, because overall the Red Sox bullpen last year was pretty solid until
led the league. They led the league in innings. Yeah.
Yeah, until they got to later in the season when they were taking on more workload because of the starters. So I definitely would like to see length out of the starters more. So if you could, offer some advice to this group of pitchers that the Red Sox have now, what advice would you give them in order to maximize their potential?
Well, my advice would be to, obviously take on the approach of their leader and Andrew Bailey, and take on the whole staff has got to have an approach on how they want to pitch and how they want to be successful. And obviously those little things will change during each scouting report and each meeting before they have a series. But the approach needs to be similar as a unit. And, the pitching staff is one big unit. And you have a number 1, 2 starter. That starter goes out, has a good game. The second starter wants to do good. And same thing with the first guy out of the bullpen. He does well. So you're one big unit. So I think that approach has to be as one big unit, not, one person.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a collective team effort. So everybody being on the same page is ultimately what's going to help them succeed. But I am certainly excited about some of these pitchers that they do have. I think there's definitely potential there, especially with guys like Brian Bayo and Cutter Crawford, who we've seen really start to show a lot of growth last year. So I'm hoping that they can continue to develop in that direction, because I definitely think Bayo has the potential to eventually be that number 1 starter that the Red Sox have been looking for. He just needs a little more time to work on his development process. And I think Bailey's somebody who can definitely help him with that.
Yeah, no question. And I think as far as our pitch staff goes this year, as of right now, I think that there's the biggest tweak for us needs to be, how do we get out here and start to attack the zone with strikes. And so what I'm trying to say is that, like, when you go out there and you attack the zone, it makes the game not only easier for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and you don't have to keep using those extra guys. So what I saw a lot of last year was guys would come in and wouldn't attack the zone, and then okay, now you got to go to the next guy. So you're having to use two guys for one man's job, and so that's kind of what happened towards us in the season last year. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year.
Yeah, I have, high hopes for them as a staff overall. It still feels like I mentioned before, there's a piece missing there. The Red Sox have done late signings before though. So, I'm not necessarily saying that they won't sign somebody else. I just am hoping that they will. But there's definitely a lot of faith there
You're not
in
the
some of
only
the
one,
young
Gabby.
players on the team for sure.
Yeah, you're not the only one hoping that.
Yeah. I mean, I do really like, Tristan Casas and Jaron Duran. They showed so much potential last year too. And I'm really excited for Casas because he certainly made a statement in his rookie season, and it'll be fun to see
Yeah.
him continue to grow as a player.
Yeah, well, in order for him to be able to produce another season like that, he's going to have to make his adjustments. I think he's ready for him. And you know what? I have a sneaky suspicion that the Red Sox this year are going to be a lot better than what people think. I think Vegas has them winning 82 games right now. So I'll be keeping an eye on that if it goes up a half a game to 82 and a half, I'm going to jump on it right away.
Wow. I like that. I mean, I hope that happens for sure. I mean, they definitely, have the pieces for sure. They just need to bring everything together and figure everything
Yep.
out. Because last year, I feel like it was a lot of certain things were coming together, and then another aspect of the team wasn't going right at the time, and they were never able to just put everything together at once to create what they needed.
Yeah, and that's the reason why they weren't successful. So when everything together clicks on all cylinders, that's when you have championship ball clubs. And so, and I know that they're going to that direction. So, yeah, man, I'm hoping for big things this year, and I think that we're going to surprise a lot of people, and we'll see. So, but yeah, let me run, and I got to get my swole on, and we'll catch up this spring maybe.
Yeah, this was an absolute pleasure, speaking with you and hearing a little bit more about your career and your hopes for this upcoming season. I certainly hope that you're right. I'm looking forward to it. I just want baseball back. This off season has felt so long, so I'm just ready to, be able to watch some Red Sox baseball again. And there you have it, folks. Jonathan Papelbon, one of the best closers of all time. In his own words, he absolutely seemed to have a blast playing for the Boston Red Sox. And you can have a blast too if you sign up for FanDuel. Are you at all into sports betting? If so, FanDuel is the way to go for you. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. I love just everything about the Super Bowl, getting together with friends, the commercials, all the good food and good times. And this year's Super Bowl is going to be interesting. Chiefs 49ers, very competitive. I'm taking the 49ers for sure in that game. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. FanDuel's super fun, and I highly recommend you check it out. I also really recommend you check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, as we have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So you can get caught up in all things sports without having to worry about feeling like you're behind or missing anything. So check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube as well. As always, Keep the faith. Go Red Sox. And I will catch you on the flip side.